The Cave of Wealth and Death, Part 2, all about gnomes. Even though many people imagine they can just walk into the Cave of Wealth and Death and get rich, most can't do this. First, there's a lot of naked fear. Fear of ghosts, fear of the dark, fear of gods and goddesses, fear of retribution. Many people talk about going in, but few can endure this trial. Most people stop at the portal and pray for wealth and power. They pray for good luck. But there are some who not only can go into this dark place, but actively desire this, and indeed are driven to do this. I call these people gnomes. Of course, there are plenty of female gnomes, but I mostly cartoon the male ones because they are more fun, and frankly, they outnumber the female gnomes 10 to 1. Any female wanting great wealth usually tries to get it by taking over some gnome's wealth and transferring it to herself. This is because gnomes have this gnawing appetite for sex, and not just any sex. They want to have the most beautiful woman on earth. They want the very best, and not the second best. And they don't want to use love. This is all about lust, for the ones that can go into the Cave of Wealth and Death must be consumed by lust. The beautiful women that the gnomes dream of are possessions, only they're not attractive unless they're hard to possess. The best deal for a gnome is for these beauties to lust after the gnome's money. This way he can feel superior to her as she slithers about, trying to appeal to him, both of them knowing there's no real love at all, just desire. And such desires. The goal of the female's passionate object of desire is this golden ring, the wedding ring. Once she gains this marvelous tool, she has the gnome at her mercy. Many gnomes struggle to understand how the scales tip in her favor. They even invented nuptial contracts to get around this business, but the females are always 2 steps ahead. They know how to nullify these contracts. Conception, divine or devilish, is the ticket. I suppose the gnomes must reproduce somehow. Anyway, according to legend, this is how they do it. Unhappy gnomes go to psychiatrists to figure this all out. Dr. Freud wrote whole books about how everything is due to sexual frustrations attached to defecation and how money is dirty. Then the rich gnomes would pay him huge sums for this information. The gnome cannot imagine his conquests don't love him, even though his traps are always set by generous amounts of money. To keep his sexual life going, the gnome needs tremendous amounts of money. This is a huge problem for everyone around them. For the gnomes always feel sorry for themselves if they have only a few $1,000,000. One can get laid with that sort of loot, but it's no fun. The gnome has to be nice to the female he desires, and he can't get the most beautiful woman. So he asks his friends and neighbors, and of course the US government is his favorite friend and neighbor, the super sugar mama. He wants help so he can go into the cave and get infinite wealth. When things go wrong, he threatens to kill himself and everyone around him if he isn't bailed out. This is the Götterdämmerung impulse he tends to have. All or nothing. We see this today as the gnome community alternately begs us for trillions of dollars, and when we complain about them using it to buy expensive females or to go to expensive resorts, they threaten to destroy the world's financial systems in retaliation. This is why we have to control these gnomes, or we will suffer terrible plagues. Back to the Cave of Wealth and Death. The minute the government turns its back on these guys, they rush off to the Cave of Wealth and Death. We can see here the path into it is well worn. They plunge in bravely since they are looking for the very things the rest of us fear, namely, the goddesses who live in this cave, who are the guardians and creators of all the fabulous riches inside. Usually, all the rest of the people are scared when they see the gnomes going into this deadly cave, but the gnomes always assure everyone they will not waken the demonic forces inside. They will not create inflation or cause a depression. They will be reasonable and careful in the inky darkness of this cave. So they might even put on a show for everyone, loudly denouncing raiding the cave and waking the evil inside, even as they know in their dark little stony hearts this is exactly what they intend to do. Inside the cave are the entities which we talked about earlier, Infinity and Zero. The goddess of Infinity and Zero are twin sisters. Actually, they're one and the same, but we humans experience them as a duality, not a singularity. Note how this Medusa grins as she offers the gnome a huge bag of money. She won't give it to him unless he first releases her innate powers to fly to the ends of the universe, unstoppable. Greenspan recently referred to the Federal Reserve as a magical piggy bank. The goddesses know perfectly well this is 100% true. Money is made out of thin air. They love making money out of thin air. The thinner the air, the more the money, and the happier the dire goddesses are. They want us to desire this infinity and will work hard to tempt the gnomes into doing this. The whole game for them is to be released from their bonds placed on them by Libra and to fly out the door and go to the heavens. The gnomes normally loved gold above all other things. But in recent years, they have learned to scorn gold and to lust after raw numbers. For gold has limitations. It is physical. It is heavy. It is hard to get. But giving themselves magic money is easy. All they have to do is add more zeros to a number and it grows at an insane pace. Since Libra uses gold to limit borrowing money, they threw this away and tried to convince everyone, including themselves, that gold is useless and stupid. This pleases the goddess of inflation, of course. With endless funny money stuffed in every pocket, the gnomes run off to expensive bars to pick up chicks. The female human stand-ins for the goddesses are ecstatic about the chance of picking the pockets of the gnomes, but the gnomes don't care. The super gnomes often run through 1,000 mistresses and assorted prostitutes and half a dozen wives and still have plenty of loot to toss around. It isn't real to them, it's all funny money for their adventures. Recently, they had the most expensive adventures in world history, and now it's ending. They are desperate to get borrowing going again, since this is the easiest way for them to add many zeros to a number and get trillions of dollars to appear magically so they can swipe a few $100 billion for themselves. They're now pushing very hard to have all of us lend them immense sums of money so they can lend us money so we can buy stuff with borrowed money. But this money is our tax money, and to pay for the money that we are lending them forces us to borrow from them to get our money back. Got it? Good. The females need this loot. They see the world going to hell, but are annoyed only if their manicured fingernails get chipped. The gnomes seldom wonder why these females grow red claws. They should look closer. The gnomes, seeking easy money, release the goddesses of inflation and depression at the same time. The price of important things continues to rise. Gold, for example, has not fallen by over 60%. Oil shot up and then fell down again, but that was due to the gnomes playing speculation games trying to get more money when their other deals collapsed. Now, the price of oil is climbing, and it's climbing relentlessly, bit by bit. We also know grocery prices have gone up and stayed up, and we sense that the winds of inflation are beating very nearby. What will we get is stagflation, which is when both goddesses act in tandem. Housing and cars lose value while food and fuel rise. Meanwhile, the gnomes are desperate. They need over $55 trillion. Since I drew this cartoon, it has risen to $66 trillion. This is for the derivatives beast. The goddesses in the Cave of Wealth and Death told the gnomes if they fed this baby monster, it would protect their ill-gotten wealth. It will prevent them from ever losing their money. So they did what the goddesses asked them to. They fed it. And it began to eat them. It is now eating the wizards, too. I have a lot to say about wizards later. They are the brains of the group. They think they understand the Cave of Wealth and Death and can manipulate it to benefit them and the gnomes. They don't enjoy wild sex. They just love pure power. They love to throw spells and control the goddesses. They are as miserable failures as the gnomes when it comes to dealing with the female forces. And this brings us to the Chinese. They are very annoyed at the immense mess the gnomes made. The dragon is ticked off at the wizards too. The dragon's now trying to teach the gnomes and wizards how money works and how to run banks. Both the gnomes and the wizards hate this Chinese dragon and sneer at it, but the dragon will continue to pressure them. If necessary, put them out of commission entirely. For the gnomes and the wizards forget dragons can breathe fire, just like they forget that women can take them to the cleaners with a flick of a finger. More about that later.